every year, just about this time, as the testing window wraps up, confidence starts fading, and my email is flooded. I knew I was going to have to make this video months ago, but it's natural to feel uncertain. But remember, you do not have to know everything to pass this exam. You just have to know the right things. And today, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to give you some tips, some techniques that you can use to boost your scores and hopefully ease your nerves. Now, if you're new here, you may not know that I take the exam every couple of years. It's a weird flex. I don't know why. But every time I take it, I learn new strategies, and it makes passing easier and faster for the next time. And so today, I'm going to give you the tips and the tricks that I've learned so far. We're going to start with the knowledge questions. The knowledge questions to me are trickier than the situational questions because they feel like they're memorization, but they're really not. One good trick is to look for opposite answers. If two answer choices are opposite, one of them is most likely the right answer. And I don't mean exact opposites necessarily, but I mean things that conflict with one another. So I'm going to give you an example of that. What is the primary goal of a compensation benchmark study? Now, A says to set wages below market average to control labor costs. B, to determine fair and competitive pay compared to industry standards. C, to create standardized salary across all job levels. D, to ensure salaries remain the same over time. Now you can see A and B aren't direct opposites because obviously the direct opposite of below is above. But competitive pay conflicts with below market pay. So on the exam, I would immediately know that one of these is the correct answer. And then since benchmarking is about market comparisons, I would narrow it down to B because it's most logical. Now here's a tip that I use for the laws. When a question asks about the laws, I break it down into pre-employment, during employment, and after employment. So instead of trying to remember what every single law says, which you will not do, I can at least compare the answer choices to the question. So here's an example of that. Which of the following must an employer do when terminating an employee due to a mass layoff under the WARN Act? A, provide the employee with reasonable accommodation. B, ensure the continuation of fair hiring practices. C, provide the employee with notice of adverse action. Or D, inform employees about state-provided reemployment services. So if you came across this question and you had absolutely no idea what is required under the WARN Act, you could still have a chance at answering this question. If you look at the question and it says, which is required at termination, you should immediately know that this is an after employment question. So then you can just compare the answer choices. A says reasonable accommodation. That is during employment, so that doesn't work. B references fair hiring practices. That's before employment. C references adverse action. Typically, that is also before employment. So the only one that makes sense is D because it is the only action that references post-employment action when it mentions reemployment. I mean, because obviously to be reemployed, there has to first be a separation. So I use that little trick all the time for the laws, and now you can use it. This next tip is also for knowledge questions. Don't choose answers that are too specific. If two answers seem correct, choose the one that is broadest and the one that applies to multiple situations. Because answers that are too specific, they may be examples rather than the actual concept that the exam is trying to test. So you are trying to think like SHRM. SHRM tests big picture HR knowledge. So their correct answers are going to be general principles rather than in the fine details. I'm going to show you an example of this. Which of the following is considered direct compensation? A, employee stock options, B, paid time off, C, base salary, or D, country club membership. Now, if you didn't know the answer to this, you could still look at it and say employee stock options is a specific type of compensation. PTO is a specific benefit. Country club is a specific perk. But base salary is broad because there are different kinds of base salaries. You could have a fixed base salary. It could be hourly. It could be commission. So the other ones, they give you specific examples of some form of total rewards. But base salary is a broad compensation topics that lots of things can fit into. Okay, now we're going to move on to some quick situational question tips because y'all love these. I knew I had to throw them in here. If I didn't, y'all might be throwing tomatoes at me in the comments. So here we are. Let's go. All right, so the SHRM exam will give you two answers that are obviously wrong. One will sound good, but it will be missing something that makes it the best answer. And then the last one will be your best answer. Strategic, big picture, HR line. Most people analyze those last two options for too long until you talk yourself out of the right answer. And you don't want to make that mistake. What you are going to do is read all four answers, cross out the two that are, obviously wrong, your little throwaway questions. And then between the last two, pick the one that solves the problem long term, strengthens HR strategic position, and solves the whole problem, not just a piece. A manager wants to fire an underperforming employee immediately, but there is no documentation of poor performance. What should HR do? A, approve the termination. B, provide a performance improvement plan. C, conduct a formal performance review. Or D, place the employee on unpaid suspension. In this question, you can immediately spot the wrong answers, A and D, because they are reactionary. Actually, A is a legal risk, and D is a disciplinary action. It's not a performance improvement strategy. So those are your throwaways. You can strike those out. So that leaves B and C. B sounds good, but it is not the best answer because it is not the first step. You cannot put an employee on a PIP without assessing their performance first and having documentation. So it jumps ahead without determining what actually needs to be solved. So that leaves C as the best answer. Another thing that I want to talk to you about is brain fatigue. Now, ideally, you will have already conditioned yourself to focus on reading these long situational questions by actually practicing on these long situational questions. But if you haven't, well, we're here now. So either way, I'm going to show you how to shave 30 seconds off your time per question. Remember this for the long situational questions. SHRM puts the actual question at the end. So instead of reading the whole question, you can just skip to the end and read the last sentence and do that first. This way, when you go back to read the whole question, you already know what you're looking for in that question, and it makes it a lot easier for you to find the details that you need to answer. The next thing I have to caution you against is trying to cram at the last minute. You are just going to end up exhausted, and you're not going to perform well on test day. Now is the time to shift into execution mode, not study mode. So stop trying to learn anything new right now. Your brain really does need time to process what it already knows. So shift into test taking mode. Focus on thinking like a strategic leader. Focus on thinking about how SHRM thinks. Focus on your mindset, the process of elimination, making sure that you're staying strategic, and even just focus on being prepared mentally. I have to remind you also about the importance of identifying keywords. I made a video about that already. So if you're not using that technique, you're making the test way harder than it needs to be. As a matter of fact, click this next video. I'm going to give you those keywords in case you have not seen this video yet. And remember, we are all in this together. You have an entire community of HR professionals rooting for you. Drop your test day in the comments so that we can all be sending you good vibes and good luck and well wishes on your test day.